I'm an addict named Dan. Dan! You were wrong. This isn't uncomfortable at all. Probably. So I've known the speaker tonight for about 7 years, and he has sponsored me for about 5.5. When he asked me to do this, I said no. You can't say no to NA. I figured I could say no to him. He asked me to think about it, and I did, and I couldn't remember a single time over those 5 years that he wasn't there for me when I needed him to be. So, thanks, buddy. I really wanted to come up here and roast the shit out of him. Wow. I got a surprising amount of cosigns before this for that. I think, though, it would be a little more honest to try to give a little insight into this guy by sharing some gratitude for everything he's done for me and a lot of other people. So, thank you, Jon, for showing me how to live. I got here and I can read, so I knew what the steps said, but I didn't know what they meant. I didn't understand, practical application of spiritual principles till I met this guy. And my life is amazing today, and it's because I followed his lead. I have to say thank you for always answering your phone. His schedule's a little wacky, so it's a little tougher now, but there in the early days, when shit was touch and go for me pretty regularly, he was always there. I literally called him every day for about a year. We make bad decisions fairly often. I made repeated bad decisions fairly often, and shit got toxic and crazy. And he always picked up the phone and always gave me the same suggestions. They always came from the steps. I've never forgotten that kindness and what had to have been fucking monumental patience. I have to say thank you on behalf of my sponsees and grand sponsees, and I just learned today, apparently, great grand sponsees. I feel like I'm serving them best when I'm kind of channeling my inner Jon, and I've accurately remembered something with my Swiss cheese brain that he's told me, and I'm able to give that to them. You don't always get the credit for it. I'm sorry. And finally, because of the career calling that he's chosen, and God knows how much time and energy he's given out of his personal program, thank you on behalf of hundreds, if not thousands, of addicts who are given the gift of another day not promised because of the impact that you had in their lives. So it's an honor and a privilege to call this guy my sponsor, and love him very much, have the utmost respect for him. And it's also his fucking birthday, so sing happy birthday to him. So, everybody please welcome Jon D.
I'm an addict. My name is Jon. I don't know how much my ego is going to be able to take being up here, being the center of attention for this long. First, I'd like to thank the convention committee for the opportunity to come and share a message that saved my life. I know standing on this stage, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Dan talked about channeling his inner Jon. Well, I've channeled my inner Chris and James and Mike and other Chris's and Pam. And I've channeled so many people because what I've learned from this fellowship is that we don't have to recreate the wheel. And more importantly, we don't have to live through pain. Pain is optional. My clean date is January the 12th of 2012. I was born and raised in Morgantown. I'm the youngest of 5, and my upbringing wasn't all that bad. I am, I'm not going to talk a lot about active addiction tonight. I'm going to try to focus on recovery most of the time. But I think it's a little bit important to kind of set the stage of how I got to stand on this podium tonight. The first huge impact in my life was I was molested by a family member. I talk about that when I'm on this stage because I remember what it was like to be sitting in the seat dealing with pain and have nobody else talk about the crazy shit they went through. I'm stronger because of that. I'm a survivor today and not a victim. And I found that in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. I also experienced one of the most fucked up days of my life at that point in time. And I came home and I was 13 years old, and my family was sitting around the dinner table. And my family's more fucked up than I am, and that's saying something. So I knew shit wasn't good, but I didn't know exactly what that was. And they invited me to sit down and proceeded to tell me that my father had terminal cancer. But as a 13-year-old, I didn't understand what that meant other than he had cancer, and cancer's a fucking scary word. And within a week, I had graduated to becoming one of us. I had been with a group of people that were very much like me and very much like us, and they said, come with us, we'll get your mind off that. And it did, and I loved it. The crazy part is I don't think drugs are bad. I think drugs are really good. They do what they're supposed to do. But when I use them, when this fucked up dude puts drugs in his body, I'm gonna destroy everything around me. And that's how pretty much from that point for the next 20-some years went. But as much as I don't want to talk about my dad, I have to while I'm on the stage. My dad was my hero. My dad was the man that had a similar personality to me. And for all the Morgantown people, yes, that means he was arrogant and stubborn. He was a pain in the ass. And I couldn't be in a room with him because we were too much the fuck alike. And every time I was with him, all I could give out was resentment and anger and turmoil. And then I have this one brother. I don't know the families you come from, but I have this, his name's Josh. And he's kind of an asshole because he's perfect. 4.0 student, all-state wrestler, don't think he had a substance until he was in his 20s. Graduated med school, makes more in like 15 minutes than I will in a year. And it set the stage for me consistently and always feeling inferior. And when the place that's home, the place that's supposed to be safe, the place that you're supposed to be able to go back to and relax is the place you feel inferior, it only gets fucking worse from there. And I remember school. I remember going to school and being in high school. And, I lived a Jekyll and Hyde lifestyle. I probably still am too smart for my own good. So in the classroom, I was a 4.0 student. And outside of the classroom, I was fucking shit. I don't know how else to explain it. And having that situation of a brother that was perfect made it intolerable to be in the home because I couldn't live up to that expectation. And, it allowed me to believe the lie. And then I start getting migraines. And, you know, back when I was a teenager, they did crazy shit like give you pain medication. And I took it, and I was like, damn, it knocked out my headache. And then I sat there for a second and said, damn, it knocked out the emotional pain. Where the fuck have you been all my life? And it was a simple, not conscious decision that when the physical pain wasn't there, but the emotional pain was, that I'm just treating pain, right? It's all right. And then the hard part comes in. And the hard part is watching my father, a 6'4", 260-pound person, over the next decade of his life, go to 6'4", 160 pounds. And when you see that day in and day out, it's a reminder. It's a reminder that your heroes aren't perfect. Your heroes are gonna fucking succumb too. And it was just too much for me to tolerate. I didn't know how to be or where to be or how to fit in. You know, high school, I had friends in every group, a friend that was a jock, friends that were of other ethnic groups, friends that were nerds. I probably fit in with that group a little more than I would like to. But, you know, I can say that no matter what that group was, I never felt a part of. I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like that fucking outcast that just didn't quite belong where he was. And then the day came where I got the call that it was time to come see my dad. And he had decided to die in hospice in his home. And I tell this story because it used to be the part that tore me up, that I regretted the most, that was the most despicable part of me, the part that I couldn't take ownership of. And I don't know if you've seen people die or on their deathbed, their face is sunk in, they have a gray tone, they smell a little different. And, you know, like there was a bed and all my siblings and their significant others, and my mom was in the room. And, you know, they're singing church songs or some bullshit. I wasn't participating. And I saw his medication on his nightstand. And I said, they're never gonna notice. Like, I'm the important one here right now. I mean, can't people see I'm losing my father? And I grabbed that medication and I went into an adjacent bathroom. It had an eyedropper on the inside, and about the first eyedropper, I was cool. About the second eyedropper, halfway through, I hear, Jonathan, where's your dad's medication? And like many of you, I thought I invented slick. And I came out of the room, and I, you know, toss it under the bed and get down on my hands and knees and come out like I'm the savior of the fucking moment. And I fooled exactly one person in that room, and that was myself. And now I look back at who that person was, and I take ownership of it. He was an insecure, self-centered, self-absorbed individual that didn't have the capacity to worry about his dad on his deathbed or the pain that he was going through. I was the guy that was more concerned with my feelings than watching my siblings stand there in the toughest moment of their life, watching the only man that had ever played a father figure in their life die in front of their eyes. But goddamn it, I was the most important person, because that's the nature of my disease. My disease tells me that I'm the most important person in every room I'm in. And then you guys put me on a stage, and that's it. It doesn't help, guys. It doesn't help. And I would love to tell you that when the religious leader took me outside that was in the room that day and asked me if I took the medication, I was like, hell yes, I took it, and I'd love to get clean. But that is not what I said. I said, fuck no. You're crazy. He said, I don't want two people to die today. And by the grace of God, only one did, and it was my father. You know, the rest of my active addiction is kind of inconsequential until I get to the point where I tried the geographic cure. So I thought that my problem was one particular substance. It wasn't me, it was one substance. So if I just got out of my area and I went to this other place, that everything was gonna be cool. And I picked this nice little town called East Liverpool, Ohio. For the people not in this corner that don't know, I'm going to go out on a limb and not suggest anyone pick East Liverpool, Ohio as the place to get clean. Now, if you do, awesome, God bless you. For me, it didn't work out so well, because unfortunately, I'm attracted to you guys like metal to magnets. You can take me to the desert, and I'll find someone that's like me in a heartbeat. And of course, like any good addict, I found a dealer in a couple days. And this is the epitome of addiction. His name was Shitty. Now, you all laughing. How many of you gave money to somebody hoping that the dope came back? Well, that's why he got the name Shitty, because sometimes he came back and sometimes he didn't. And in that moment, I was dating an addict, an active addiction. And, it gave me a little glimpse of what it's like to be our families. What it's like to watch someone you care about. In that moment I did. In hindsight, it was lust, not love. But in that moment, I cared about her. And I watched her use substances to oblivion. And she didn't have her kids. And she beat herself up nightly. And I don't mean figuratively. I mean fucking literally beat herself up. I remember multiple nights of she used to pound her head off of the floor, and I would have to put my hand in between her forehead and the floor so that there wasn't blood. And you would think, well, damn, John, you tried going someplace else and that didn't work. Then you tried dating an addict because that was the cure, and that didn't work. Like, maybe it's time to get clean. No. I needed some more pain. So my lasting image of East Liverpool was walking into a party, knocking on the door. The lady of the house opened the door and said, "I have nothing to do with it." That's a weird flex, but okay. And I kind of connected the dots really quickly, even though I was on copious amounts of drugs. You see, my fiance at the moment thought it would be a really good idea to flirt with this guy on a regular basis. So, I rummage up the stairs to open a door to see some dude that's not me balls deep in my old lady. And while I'm spiritual today, I was not quite as spiritual in that moment. And I came back to Morgantown. And, there was a period of time that I was abstinent. I was not in recovery, but I didn't have drugs in my system. And I was fucking miserable. I was miserable at a level that I didn't understand. But then, like many of us do, I found a new woman. I thought maybe this would work. So the crazy part is she had these things called boundaries. And I didn't like those. But what she had is what got me through most of my active addiction. Daddy issues. So for everyone out in the crowd that has daddy issues, I thank you. My addiction thanks you. And eventually the drugs quit working the way they were. And then you have to do other things to get to what you want. So eventually it gets to the point where you're not just destroying your own life, you're destroying the lives of those around you in your community. And like any good entrepreneur, I found out if you get with one of your friends and you buy drugs in quantity, they get cheaper. So that's what I did. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to Morgantown, but it's not a huge city. So you got this ginger kid running around with his Indian kid. We'll call him a knot. Running around selling dope. Because scared money don't make money. And that's how it went for years. So for me, I have this bad habit. The bad habit kind of looks like you do a bunch of dope, you start nodding out, you smoke a bunch of cigarettes, like I still sometimes do, and then you burn shit. So, you know, I burn a hole in my old lady, girlfriend at that time, now my wife's couch, and she had enough. And on a cold January night in 2012, she told me to kick rocks. And by this time, I had destroyed every relationship in my life. My family didn't want me. My friends weren't really there. I had just thrown the Indian kid under the bus with his mom. So that wasn't an option. So there was a dude I sold dope to that lived close by. And I don't really believe in stigma, so I'm not going to talk too much about his particular proclivities. But let's just frame it as this is the type of individual that I was not accustomed to putting myself around. This was the type of individual that lived a very eccentric lifestyle. And I decided that it'd be a good idea, because I had no other options, to trade him dope for a place to live. And then you wake up the next day, and you're 31, and you haven't showered in 5 days, and you haven't brushed your teeth, and you don't remember when your last meal was. And that's the good part. You know, when you have no self-worth and you have no self-esteem, and you start, you know, going back in your fucking mind to when you were a teenager and you had, I don't know, these crazy things called like goals and aspirations, and you realize you're 31 years old, laying on a couch of a dude you never normally associate with no prospects of a future. I can't see a better recipe for Narcotics Anonymous than that. I picked up a phone, and I had called local treatment centers and got in, and they were really rare 28-day beds at that particular point in time, and I raised fucking holy hell. I'm pretty sure I burned my voice in some of the minds of the staff that were there when they told me I wasn't going to get into longer-term treatment. Because for me, for this addict, I knew I was going to fucking die if I went back out there. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And I got into one. And the best part about that treatment center, the part that allows me to stand here in front of you guys and talk tonight, was they took me to Narcotics Anonymous meetings at night. And then what was even more crazy is they had a couple staff members that were us, that would disclose that they were us, that would tell you shit like, you have all the answers, you just don't like them all. That would tell you shit like, if you're going to be in this recovery thing, if you're going to do what we do, I need you to buy a suit, because you're either going to wear it a lot or you're going to get buried in it. Those people that told me the shit that I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. And if you talk to them right now, that group, the group that's still here from my treatment center, or from Narcotics Anonymous that was in the area of my treatment center, they would tell you that they called me Know-It-All John. Because goddamn it, I knew it all. Still do today. I'm just smart enough to know I don't know shit today, and it's the easiest place to be. And in those meetings, they did shit like tell you to get a sponsor and work steps and get a home group and chase your dope or chase your recovery like you used to chase your dope. Little Freudian slip, it happens. And see, it wasn't my first introduction to Narcotics Anonymous. Prior to going to that treatment, we had, me and my Indian friend had caught some criminal charges, and they court-ordered us there. So we thought it was a really good idea to go play crossword puzzles in the back of the room, have Pam, who just grunted, eye us up. And at one of those meetings, I decided it'd be a really good idea to pick up a key tag. Because at this point, my old lady knew I was getting high. So, you know what? If I just pick up a key tag, she won't notice me scratching obsessively or not having any money on payday. She's just gonna buy it. And I like any good addict, I didn't do the pick up the key tag when it was key tag time. I waited until after the meeting, and I went up to the chairperson and was like, "Hey man, like I really need that 6-month key tag." Like any of you motherfuckers were gonna pick up a white win. You go for the 6 months at least. And I went home that day and I was pounding my chest, and you know, my wife was, or girlfriend at the time, was happy, at least for a moment. And I bring that story up because there's all these crazy things that I'm about to tell you that are timing. That there's just no fucking possible way for them to be anything else other than Narcotics Anonymous. So that 6-month key tag was stored in a place where I held my dope all the time. My hoodies hanging in my closet. And when I went to treatment, all my shit was in a garbage bag. Because, you know, that's where we end up. And I get out of treatment, and my old lady's basically like, "You can't live here." And I get into this little 1-bedroom apartment. And I'm going in this 1-bedroom apartment and, you know, setting it up and starting to put clothes away. And, you know, one of the things they talked about in the meetings is make sure you don't have any old people, places, and things around. So I'm like, I was on a little bit of dope right before I went in, so my memory's a little foggy of exactly the last few, months of my active addiction. And I'm starting to go through pockets. And as I hang up this gray hoodie, in one pocket is a 6-month key tag. And the other pocket is a bundle of dope. There's nobody around. It's just me. I don't have a sponsor yet. I'm fresh out of treatment. And I have to make a decision. That decision is whether to be honest or to wear those masks that I've worn most of my life. And in that moment, something was stronger than me got me to throw it in the toilet. I would say flush it, but I needed that pat on the back from somebody coming later to tell me, "Wow, you really did throw that in the toilet." So I let it float for a while so I could prove that I did it. I'm glad y'all can relate. And I went to a meeting that night. And I used to think when I went to meetings, y'all were full of shit. I used to think one or two things were gonna happen. You were either going to tell me the secret of how to use successfully once I got one of those black tags that y'all had, or, and more importantly, you were going to show me how to be a better version of a drug addict than I was. And you did, but I wasn't looking at it like that. I thought you were going to teach me, you know, how to manipulate better, how to get drugs cheaper, how to beat piss tests, you know, the important things. And then I stuck around, and that sponsor made me call him, and he made me do these crazy things called steps. And I didn't know exactly what it meant to do them. But I knew that the most important thing was that the people that were around, the people that were giving me this ounce of hope that maybe, just maybe, this fucked up addict could do something different with their life, they did crazy shit like share about steps in meetings. And they didn't share about a problem and then get up and leave the fucking room while the solution was being shared. They actually sat in their fucking seat and they picked up the phone and they loved me when I was unlovable. They cared about me when I didn't care about me. They took time out of their life and their families and their work to answer the phone and talk to this addict about the same fucking story he talked about yesterday. That's what they did for me. But I'm an overachiever, so I breezed through those first 3 steps. Because that's what we do, right? You know, if I can get 2 steps done in the same amount of time, I'm double as clean. And I got to my end of my 3rd step, and my sponsor at the time said, "You're not ready for 4." And I was like, "Motherfucker, I'm ready for 4. I finished 3. Didn't you see I finished 3? And he said, "No, you're not ready for 4. He's like, "Keep sharing at meetings, keep practicing 1, 2, and 3 in your life, and when you're ready for 4, I'll let you know." Like, what kind of fucking power trips this dude on? And I bugged the living shit out of that guy for like the next 2.5 months, like constantly calling, like, "Hey, I'm ready for 4, I'm ready for 4. Finally, the motherfucker had enough of me. He said, "All right, you want to start your 4th step? This is how you're going to do it." He said, "I'm going to give you a book on playing the guitar." All right. He said, "I want you to read it forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards." And then he said, "I want you to write me a report on playing the guitar at the end of it. And when you do that, we'll get you on to 4. And I was like, "This dumb motherfucker, I'll have this done by Monday. Can we go ahead and schedule?" And you know, the conversation kept going and kind of shifted a little bit. And right before the end of the conversation, he was like, "Oh yeah, one more thing." I was like, I knew there was something like this one more thing, because that's this dude's MO. He said, "So when you got that report and you've read that book forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards," he said, "and we sat down to share it. He said, I'm going to hand you a guitar. I'm going to ask you to play me Stairway to Heaven." He said, "Are you going to be able to do it?" I said, "Fuck no." He said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Well, I've never touched a guitar. I've never played it." He said, "Hold on, let me get this straight. So you can read this book forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards, and you can take that knowledge and you can put a pen to paper and you can write about it. But you're telling me that's not the same as application in your life?" This motherfucker. And goddamn it, it's exactly what I needed. And it's exactly why I'm standing here. Because it's great to talk about steps. It's great to take the time to work on the inside of ourselves that's damaged. It's more important when we walk out of these fucking meetings to personify spiritual principles and steps and carry a fucking message and not just talk about a message. Because those are 2 drastically different things. And then I'm on step 4. And about that time, in my opinion, the coolest thing that happened to me in Narcotics Anonymous happens. I'm invited by a home group in the area. Well, actually, let me start a little before that. I'm working this shit remedial job. I was doing laundry and housekeeping and transport and sitting for suicidal people at the hospital. And during the many breaks that I didn't deserve that I was outside on, I had somebody that was from these rooms come up to me, and he was cleaning the adjacent football stadium. And he said, "Well, how much money do you make?" And I was like, whatever it was. And he's like, "I'll give you $1 more. Come work for me, and you can be management." And I said, nothing is better than judging other people's work, so yes. some of my employees just just screeched a little bit when I said that. And I took the job, and it was still a shit job, but it allowed me to be around you guys a lot because I was able to hire a bunch of people from the rooms. And one of the cool byproducts of that is every Friday night we played a poker game. And maybe there's not a whole lot of spiritual principles in taking a knot's money. Like 2 more, that's it. But the cool part was during those hands, we talked about real shit. We talked about application in our life. We talked about steps. We talked about how we got through things that used to baffle us. We talked about how an addict, any addict, can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. And in one of those meetings, remember that asshole brother I was talking about? The one that's the end-of-life doctor, the one that's perfect? Well, he calls me, and he says, "This is going to be fucking weird, but I got a question for you." And I'm like, "All right, shoot." He said, "I have this 8-year-old girl. She has cystic fibrosis. She has a wish. It's going to be her final wish. She would like to meet," what the fuck's that dude's name? Luke Bryant. And he was coming to the basketball arena the next day. And he said, "By any chance, do you know anyone within the university that you could connect me to so I could get this girl to meet this guy?" So I held the phone down, and my boss was sitting right beside me. And he said, "Sure, here's the number." And the next day, my brother was in a van with Luke Bryant on the way to West Virginia Children's Hospital to meet this little girl. If that's not fucking Narcotics Anonymous, I don't know what is. I had to be in the right moment at the right time with the right person sitting around me for that to work. And if that was it, if that was the end of this fucking story, it would still be worth saying on this stage. Because there's magic in these rooms, guys. There's fucking magic. But it wasn't. So a week before, they had scheduled me in that arena, a place to work that concert. And they just so happened to place me about 7 feet from where this girl was sitting in her wheelchair. And Luke Bryant stopped the concert and shined a light up and talked about how she was bashful when she grabbed his butt. And you and for a dude that never cared, for a dude that didn't know what fucking feelings were, that was a pretty fucking cool moment. That may have been one of the coolest moments I'd had in my life to that point. And again, it'd be fucking dope if that was the end of the story, but it's not. So when I was on that 4-step, one of the home groups in the area where my treatment center was asked me to come give my lead. And I told that story. I told the story about what the magic of Narcotics Anonymous can do, that it can do things that are beyond your comprehension, things that are fucking amazing. And I told the story, and then people came up after the meeting and stroked my ego, told me how great it was. And then there was this one girl. She was fucking sobbing. And she was like, that was my cousin. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I had no clue what was going on in that moment. No idea that this was the girl's cousin from my story. And she goes on to continue to sob and to tell me that a week before her cousin had died. But that she died with a smile on her face and a picture of her and Luke Bryant by her bed. Like, if that isn't fucking magic, I don't know what is. And life keeps doing that to me. I wish I could tell you why my higher power has a sick sense of humor, but I don't fucking know. But he does. He's twisted. Has nothing to do with me. It's him. And you know what? When I talked about standing on the shoulders of giants, I meant it. I'm up here today because people gave a shit. When I was in treatment, I went to those rooms and I was high as fuck for months before I went away. All the people in my life, all the people I sold to, all the people that I bought from, they didn't send me a message. But this one person from a Narcotics Anonymous meeting said, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm worried about you. Please come back. So I'm almost 8 years from that moment. 8 years from reading that text message, but that message meant the fucking world to me. You know, there are people that I wish were sitting in this room. Cruz, Patrick, Garrett, Cassidy, but they're not. And we have an obligation to attract rather than promote. And when people were fucking getting high in our meetings and we're running them out and we're treating them like they are lepers and they don't belong in the place that's gonna fucking save their lives, we're not living a program. I've lost too many people to stand up here and not talk about some of that shit. I'm not trying to be on a soapbox, but I'm also trying to not go into any more funerals that I don't have to go to. And it's on us. It's on us. It's on us to not be in our little fucking cliques after the meeting. It's on us to go talk to that newcomer that took everything in their fucking human body to share that it was their first meeting, or to do what I've never done, pick up a white key tag. Because my ego wouldn't allow me to do that shit. Those are the people that are going to keep our fellowship alive and free. You know, I'd love to say I was a perfect addict, and I am the epitome of imperfection. But I'm also the person that perseveres. I sat in a room full of resilience. You know, we as a population have to size people up in a minute and understand, can we trust them? Can we not trust them? Are they the cops? Pretty much if you got that one, that's why you're in the room. You know, if I come up here and I be disingenuous, if I blow smoke out of my ass and tell you how it's all fucking unicorns and rainbows, I'm doing everyone a disservice, including myself. Recovery's fucking hard. And the longer you're in it, the more weird it gets. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Make sure I'm not going too crazy. All right, so this is the hardest year of my recovery, by far. And it's not because I wanted to get high, which is fucking amazing. You see, I'm a father of one. My son's name's Cooper. He is a spitting image of me. God help us all. And in May of this year, we were pregnant with our second child. And we went to the first ultrasound. And we left, and I went back to work. In this ultrasound, I saw my son's hand for the first time. I saw his feet. I remember my first son being born. I remember sitting in the parking lot of the hospital and calling my sponsor and my sponsees and my grand sponsor and saying, this being that's sitting across the room and he's crying, I don't feel connection. I don't feel like he's my son. He's this entity I got to keep alive. What the fuck did I do? And on the other end of the phone was silence for a second, and then laughter. And then you're going to get over it. And you're going to build a relationship with your son, and he's going to be the most important thing that ever happened to you, and he's going to change you. And God damn it, they were fucking right. And then we're in May, and I see my son's hands. And he's lounging back with his arms behind his head. And I said, damn, maybe this one will like me more than my wife. And I go back to work, and I get a call from my wife. And she's crying beyond I've ever heard her cry. And she says, there's something wrong with Liam's brain. And I said, what? And they said, there's something wrong with Liam's brain. We need to go, figure this out. And you know how I've said, like, there's these times and these situations that are just too fucked up. So my brother that's a doctor got a divorce, and then he got re-engaged to an OB doctor, a high-risk OB doctor. So I was able, in 2 phone calls, to get into a high-risk OB with a second ultrasound the same day. So I'm normally the guy that gives bad news. I'm normally the guy that tells people, like, sorry, you fucked up, you gotta go. Can you explain this dirty urine screen? It was not the poppy seed bagel. And they did the second ultrasound, and the lady walked us back to talk to a geneticist. You went into a little room with a little circle table and 2 chairs and a box of tissues. Like, you gotta already put the box of tissues there? Like, give me a fucking minute. But I knew. She didn't have to say a word. So my baby was missing a piece of his brain that connected the left hemisphere from the right hemisphere. The chances of him being severely complicated was astronomical. And I've told this story to some extent, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I haven't told this part. And if I'm gonna be up here, I'm gonna be fucking raw, and I'm gonna be fucking true. So we were 21 weeks in 3 days. The state law in West Virginia is you have to make a decision by 22 weeks. So basically, me and my wife have to have 48 hours to make the hardest decision of my fucking life. The decision whether to keep a baby that is likely going to need care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the fucking clock. The baby that I had so many fucking hopes and dreams for 3 hours earlier when I watched his hand for the first time. And I watched him push his foot against my wife's belly. And we made the decision. We made the decision that it wasn't fair to my son Cooper, that it wasn't fair to us, that it wasn't fair to Liam, to bring him into a world of pain. Because you see, as a fucking addict, I know what pain is. But I also know what serenity is, and it's sure as shit not living that existence. And I was lucky enough that my wife was on the same page as me. And I would love to say we made the decision and it was all over, but that's not my fucking story. Because you see, my higher power has a sick, fucking twisted sense of humor. So we take a day to make that goddamn decision. And when we go back and say we want the procedure, there were 2 options. One option was she was put to sleep and they dealt with it. The other option is she had a live birth of a baby that would die in 30 seconds. So she said, we'll do it. we'll take the procedure. And the response back was, we have to go to legal. And for those who don't understand the corporate term, we have to go to legal, it pretty much means, fuck you, we're not gonna do it, but we're gonna politely say we're gonna go to legal. So they went to legal and they came back and they said, if she wants to have the baby live birth, we can do it, but we can't do the procedure. So my wife is fucking torn up. And my son is giving me the fucking business because he thinks I made mommy cry. Even though daddy's crying in the corner too, mommy's crying, and God damn it, daddy did it. And he says shit like, when am I gonna see my brother Liam? And he says shit like, I can't wait to be a big brother. So my wife agonizes for hours and says, I can't have this baby in me any longer and live the life that I know he's not gonna live. So I'll do the live birth. So we call back. This is 6 hours later. Guess what they told me? That's right, we gotta go to legal. So that proceeded to make it a situation where we had to be sent out of state. So we go out of state and we do the procedure. And of course, the second day there's like, you know, people picketing on the side telling me I'm going to hell. And I was like, I lived in that for 30 years. You don't fucking scare me. And the night before we went to Pittsburgh for that procedure is the hardest moment of my life. I was laying in bed, I hadn't slept in 3 days. Every time one of you texted me or called me, I cried. My wife told me to put down the fucking phone, but I knew I needed you. I knew I needed to work through this. I knew I couldn't do this alone. And she came by my bed and she said, do you want to tell Liam goodbye? Do you want to rub my belly and let him know he was loved and cared about and wanted? And I did. And it hurt. And I didn't know how I was going to get through it. But I knew you guys were going to help me. And it's not all crazy bad. In the midst of that, there's fucking hope. The hope is, in the midst of the worst time of my entire fucking life, I didn't have the desire to use. Not one goddamn time did I think the solution was putting dope in me. That's not me, motherfuckers. That's Narcotics Anonymous. Because I sure as shit didn't do that. In the midst of watching my wife suffer and not being able to eat, I found gratitude in my son that's precocious and a little bit of an asshole. And I found gratitude that all the things in the world that could have been wrong didn't go wrong. They went right. And I have a second version of me that's either going to do something real fucking good or real fucking bad, and I'm not sure which one. And then my wife and me were on the same page. See, we don't talk a lot about group conscience in the sense of a relationship, but believe me, that was the fucking first tradition. We had a group conscience. And we got on the same page because we had a primary purpose, and that was to not live in fucking misery. And you guys taught me how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. I'm still not very good at it. But I'm getting a little better. You see, Narcotics Anonymous has done everything for me that I couldn't do for myself. It gave me compassion and empathy and sympathy. It gave me integrity. For years, I couldn't shave. The end of my active addiction, I didn't shave in a mirror. I shaved in the shower because I couldn't look at my own face. And then I got clean, and eventually I learned to shave in front of a fucking mirror. Not saying I do it all the time, but I can do it. And I have relationships back in my life. That brother, the perfect one, I was 3 years clean. It was just when he was starting to let me get back in my life, in his life, I have 3 nephews. He had a big old Honda Pilot or something. We were going somewhere. I jumped in the back, and my oldest nephew, who was like 12 at the time, said, "Daddy, who's the guy in the back?" You see, I was that kind of addict. The kind of addict that makes your brother not tell his son that he has an uncle. But because of this program, because you showed me a new way to fucking live, I have nephews in my life. Because of this program, I have a relationship with my mother again. At one point, she gave me a key to her house. And I'd love to have enough time to tell that part of the story about her giving me the key and what it really fucking meant versus what she gave me. She gave me a piece of metal, but she also gave me freedom. She gave me my heart back. She gave me something that I can't purchase. And when I would have came in here and I watched somebody stand on this stage and I was in fucking awe. And I was like, wow, I can't wait till one day be able to get up there and actually have something good to say. And now I'm standing up here. Not because of anything I did, because of everything you did. Because I get high, but we stay clean. This program has done everything for me, and I am fucking honored to be up here. And if you ask anyone from my area what they'll remember me for, when I'm dead, when I'm gone, when it's 15 years, they're gonna look back and they're gonna talk about this dude that ended every fucking share this way. See, there was a time that I didn't love anyone. There was a time that I would take everything from you for my good. And then somebody loved me before I could love myself. And then eventually I learned to love myself. And I learned that the people that were coming up to try to hug me genuinely cared. Because at first I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're trying to do, but you ain't hugging me. And now I let a motherfucker walk by without giving me a hug. And I end it with this. Just in case nobody else tells you today, I love you. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.